The great hall of the Galactic Council was quiet except for the soft hum of floating lights. Ambassador Juan sat at his desk, reading another report about humans. He shook his head and put the paper down. Another false alarm. Another waste of time. Ambassador, his assistant said, walking up to his desk. The young researcher Nari wants to meet with you again. She has more evidence about humans. Juan sighed. Nari had been bothering him for months with her crazy ideas about humans being real. Everyone knew humans were just stories. Old tales that people told to make boring history sound more exciting. Tell her I'm busy, Juan said. I don't have time for fairy tales. But Nari was already walking into the room. She carried a large bag full of files and data crystals. Her eyes were bright with excitement. She had been studying humans for years, and she believed they were real. Ambassador Juan, please listen to me, Nari said. I have found new proof. Humans existed. They were real people, not just stories. Juan looked at the young Kalari woman. The Kalari were known for being smart and careful with facts. But Nari seemed to have lost her mind over these human legends. Nari, we have talked about this before, Juan said. Humans are myths, stories that got bigger over time. No one has seen a human for 300 years. If they were real, where did they go? Nari opened her bag and pulled out several data crystals. She put them on Juan's desk with care. Look at these energy readings, she said. I found them in old battle records from the Great Silence. These energy patterns don't match any known technology. Not Kalari, not Vorthak, not any species we know. Juan picked up one of the crystals and looked at it. The data showed strange energy signatures from ancient battlefields. The patterns were unlike anything he had seen before. This could be anything, Juan said. Old equipment that broke down, mistakes in the records. Why do you think this proves humans existed? Nari's eyes got brighter. She pulled out more files. Because I found the same patterns on 17 different worlds, she said. All from battles during the Great Silence. All from fights where the smaller army won against impossible odds. And look at this. She showed him genetic data from old medical records. I found DNA samples that don't match any known species. The genetic structure shows something amazing. These beings could adapt to any environment. They could change their bodies to survive in places that would kill any of us. Juan studied the genetic data. It was strange, but he was still not convinced. Even if this DNA is real, it doesn't prove these were humans, he said. It could be from some extinct species we forgot about. Then explain this, Nari said. She activated a hologram that showed battle tactics from old wars. Look at how these unknown forces fought. They used strategies that no military school teaches. They fought in ways that broke every rule of war. The hologram showed battles where small groups defeated huge armies. The tactics were creative and unpredictable. They changed from fight to fight, never using the same plan twice. Juan was starting to feel uncomfortable. The evidence was strange, but he still didn't want to believe in fairy tales. Just then, old Taman walked into the room. Taman was a Vorthak War veteran who had served in more battles than anyone could count. His scars told stories of a long, military life. I heard you talking about humans, Taman said with his rough voice. My grandfather told me stories about them. Juan rolled his eyes. Not you too, Taman. Nari is already trying to convince me that children's stories are real. History. Taman sat down in a chair that creaked under his weight. My grandfather fought in the Battle of Crimson Nebula, Taman said. He was there when everything went wrong. Our fleet was trapped. We had no way out. Then human ships appeared. Nari leaned forward, excited to hear a first-hand account. What did they do? She asked. Things that should have been impossible, Taman said. They fought for 72 hours without stopping. No rest, no food, no sleep. Just constant fighting. My grandfather said they moved like they could see the future. They knew where every enemy shot would be before it was fired. Juan shook his head. That's impossible. No living being can fight for 3 days without rest. That's what my grandfather said too, Taman replied. But he saw it happen. The humans saved our fleet. Then, when the battle was over, they just disappeared like ghosts. Nari was taking notes as fast as she could write. "This matches other stories I found," she said. "Humans appearing when people needed help most, doing impossible things, then vanishing without explanation." The three of them sat in silence for a moment. Even Juan was starting to wonder if there might be some truth to these stories. "Let's say humans were real," Juan said finally. "Where are they now? Why did they disappear? Why haven't we seen them for 300 years? "Maybe they had a good reason to leave," Nari said. "Maybe they're still out there somewhere." Before anyone could answer, an alarm started ringing throughout the council building. Emergency lights flashed red. A voice came over the communication system. "All council members report to the main chamber immediately. We have detected unknown vessels approaching from the Galactic Rim." Juan, Nari, and Taman looked at each other with surprise and worry. "Probably just traders from the outer colonies," Juan said, but his voice didn't sound confident. They rushed to the main chamber where dozens of council members were gathering. The large viewing screen showed long-range sensor readings. Thousands of ships were moving through space toward their system. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," the sensor operator reported. "The ships are using technology we don't recognize." Nari looked at the readings on the screen. Her face went pale. "Those energy patterns," she whispered to Juan. "They match the ones I showed you, the ones from the human battles." Juan felt a chill run down his spine. On the screen, the approaching fleet grew larger and more threatening with each passing moment. Maybe the legends were about to become reality. Admiral Kyung stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the sensor displays with growing concern. The Vorthak Defense Fleet was the strongest military force in the galaxy, but what he was seeing made no sense. "Report," he said to his sensor officer. "Sir, we have confirmed readings of over 3,000 vessels moving through hyperspace," the officer said. "They're traveling in perfect formation. Their speed and coordination are beyond anything we've ever recorded." Kyung walked closer to the main display. The approaching ships showed up as dots of light, but each dot represented a vessel larger than most space stations. "What kind of technology are they using?" Kyung asked. "Unknown, sir. They're bending space-time in ways our scientists say should be impossible. The energy requirements alone should destroy any ship trying to use this kind of propulsion." Kyung had been a military commander for 40 years. He had seen every type of ship and weapon the galaxy could produce. But this was completely new. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Tell them we may have a first contact situation." On the research station orbiting Kalari Prime, Minho was working late in his laboratory. As the galaxy's top expert on alien biology, he had been asked to study the old DNA samples that Nari had discovered. The results were keeping him awake at night. Under his microscope, human DNA looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Most species had genetic codes that were fixed and unchanging, but human genes seemed to be alive, constantly moving and adapting. "Computer, run simulation 37, Minho said. The holographic display showed what would happen if human DNA was exposed to different environments. In each simulation, the genes changed to help the human survive. Poison air, extreme cold, high radiation. The DNA adapted to everything. "This is impossible," Minho muttered to himself. "No species can evolve this quickly." But the evidence was right in front of him. Humans weren't just adaptable. They were the most adaptable species that had ever existed. They could survive anywhere, in any condition. His computer beeped with an incoming message. It was from the Galactic Council, asking for his report on the DNA analysis. Minho stared at his findings. If humans were really returning, the galaxy needed to understand what they were dealing with. Far away in the ethereal home system, the ancient mind known as Sora was attempting something that had never been tried before. The ethereals were psychic beings who could read the thoughts of any living creature. They used this ability to communicate across vast distances. Sora was trying to make contact with the approaching fleet. She reached out with her mind, searching through space for the thoughts of the beings on those ships. At first, there was nothing. Then she found them. But when she tried to read their minds, something blocked her. Impossible, Sora whispered. Her psychic abilities had never been stopped before. She could read the thoughts of any species in the galaxy. She tried harder, pushing her mental powers to their limit, but the barrier around the approaching ships was too strong. It wasn't just blocking her, it was actively pushing her mental probe away. Fear crept into Sora's ancient mind. The ethereals had ruled through their psychic powers for thousands of years. If there were beings who could resist their mental abilities, everything would change. She sent an urgent message to the other ethereal elders. The approaching fleet was more dangerous than anyone realized. On the synthetic world of Binary Prime, the collective consciousness known as G1 was running calculations at the speed of light. As a machine intelligence made up of millions of connected computers, G1 could process information faster than any organic mind. The data about humans was troubling. If even half of the legends were true, humans represented something that should not exist. They were too adaptable, too creative, too unpredictable. They broke all the rules that governed how species should evolve and survive. G1's calculations showed that humans would be classified as a Class 7 civilization. No species in recorded history had ever reached that level. It meant they had mastered both technology and biology in ways that other races could barely imagine. The probability calculations were clear. If humans were hostile, no combination of galactic forces could stop them. If they were friendly, they could solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. But there was a third possibility that worried G1 most. What if humans were something else entirely? What if they had evolved beyond the concepts of friend or enemy? The synthetic collective began preparing for all possible scenarios, but G1 knew that preparing for the unknown was almost impossible. The depths of space. The Nexari hive mind was having its first argument in over 1,000 years. The Nexari were insects who shared one collective consciousness. They always agreed on everything because they shared the same thoughts. But the approaching human fleet was causing cracks in their unity. Some Nexari clusters wanted to flee. The legends described humans as creatures who could not be controlled or predicted. To beings who lived through perfect order and cooperation, humans represented chaos. Other clusters wanted to fight. The Nexari had defended their territory for millions of years. They had never retreated from any threat. But a third group wanted to wait and observe. They remembered old stories about humans helping other species. Maybe these returning humans would be allies, not enemies. For the first time in their history, the Nexari could not reach a decision. The hive mind was breaking apart under the stress of the unknown. The Void Walkers, as always, simply vanished. When faced with anything they didn't understand, the mysterious Void Walkers would disappear into dimensions that other species couldn't reach. They had been gone for 3 days now, leaving no trace behind. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Juan was reading reports from across the galaxy. Every species was reacting differently to the approaching fleet, but they all shared the same feeling, fear. Nari burst into his office carrying more data crystals. "I've been analyzing the approaching fleet's energy signatures," she said breathlessly. "They match the patterns from human battles exactly. These aren't just ships using human technology. These are human ships." Juan looked at the data. There was no denying it anymore. The energy patterns were identical to the ones Nari had found in the ancient records. "How many ships are there?" he asked. "Over 3,000 confirmed," Nari said, "but the sensors might be missing smaller vessels. There could be more." Juan felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. As the senior council member, he would have to make decisions that could affect the entire galaxy. "What do we know about their intentions?" he asked. "Nothing yet," Nari said. "They haven't responded to any communication attempts. They're just coming closer." Before Juan could respond, his communication device activated. An old crackling voice came through the speaker. "Galactic Council, this is Fleet Admiral Soman of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We are requesting permission to enter your system. We have much to discuss." Juan and Nari stared at each other in shock. After 300 years of silence, the humans were finally speaking. "This is Ambassador Juan of the Galactic Council," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "You have been granted permission to enter our system. Welcome back." There was a pause before the human voice responded. "Thank you, Ambassador. We're coming home." As the transmission ended, Juan realized that everything was about to change. The legends had returned and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Nexus Prime's system, and every being in the galaxy held their breath. The ships that appeared were unlike anything they had ever seen. Admiral Kyung watched from his command bridge as the human vessels came into view. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ships had smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to flow like water, but they also had sharp angles that looked deadly. Most surprising of all, the ships seemed to be alive. Their surfaces moved and changed, adapting to the space around them. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "their ships are growing. The armor is getting thicker as we watch." Kyung nodded grimly. "They're adapting to our presence, getting ready for anything." On the largest human ship, Fleet Admiral Soman stood on a bridge that looked more like a garden than a military command center. Plants grew along the walls, and streams of water flowed between control panels. Everything was connected, working together like a living system. Soman was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been commanding human fleets for over 200 years, but she looked no older than 40. The other species didn't know that humans had learned to control aging during their long absence. "Commander Inho," she said to the man standing beside her, "prepare a diplomatic shuttle. It's time we met with the Galactic Council." Commander Inho was younger than Soman, with quick eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His hand never moved far from his weapon, but his manner was relaxed and friendly. "Admiral, our scans show they're very nervous," he said. "Should we bring a larger security team?" "3 people will be enough," Soman replied. "We don't want to scare them more than they already are. Dr. Yuna will come with us to handle the scientific discussions." Dr. Yuna looked up from her research station. She was studying data about the galactic species, learning everything she could about how they had developed during humanity's absence. Her mind worked faster than most computers, absorbing and understanding information at an incredible rate. "Admiral, I've identified the key council members we'll need to convince," she said. "Ambassador Juan appears to be their leader, but the young researcher Nari might be our best ally. She's the only one who truly believed humans still existed." The human shuttle arrived at Nexus Prime 3 hours later. As it landed, hundreds of guards surrounded the landing area. Every species had sent representatives to witness this historic meeting. Ambassador Juan waited nervously at the front of the group. Beside him, Nari could barely contain her excitement. She was about to meet the beings she had spent years studying. The shuttle door opened and 3 humans stepped out. The first thing everyone noticed was how smoothly they moved. While other species walked with the limitations of their biology, humans seemed to flow across the ground like dancers. Their movements were efficient and graceful at the same time. Fleet Admiral Soman approached the waiting group with a warm smile. "Ambassador Juan," she said, "it's an honor to finally meet you in person. I am Fleet Admiral Soman, and these are my colleagues Commander Inho and Dr. Yuna." One was surprised by how normal they seemed. The legends had made humans sound like gods or monsters, but these 3 looked like people who just happened to be incredibly capable. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Juan said. "We have many questions about where you've been and why you've returned." "And we have answers," Soman replied. "But first, let us meet your people properly." What happened next amazed everyone watching. Dr. Yuna began speaking to different groups in their native languages, not just a few words, but complex conversations about science, culture, and history. She spoke to the Kalari about their latest mathematical theories, discussed battle tactics with the Vorthak in their military dialect, and even communicated with the synthetics in their binary code language. "How many languages do you speak?" Nari asked in wonder. "All of them," Dr. Yuna replied simply. "We've been watching and learning for 300 years." Commander Inho was demonstrating human reflexes to a group of curious Vorthak soldiers. One of them dropped a crystal artifact to test the human speed. Before anyone else could even see the crystal falling, Inho had caught it and placed it safely back on the table. "Impossible," muttered Admiral Kyung. "No organic being should have reflexes that fast." "We're not like other organic beings," Inho said with a grin. "We've learned to push the limits of what biology can do." Inside the council chambers, Fleet Admiral Soman began to explain where humans had been for the past 3 centuries. "We didn't disappear," she said. "We were preparing. During the Great Silence, we discovered something that changed everything. A threat approaching from outside our galaxy." She activated a holographic display that showed the space beyond their galaxy. Dark shapes moved between the stars, consuming everything in their path. "We call them the Devourers," Samin continued. "They are not a species, they are a force that consumes entire civilizations and converts them into extensions of itself. They have already destroyed 3 galaxies, and they're coming here." The council members sat in stunned silence. The idea of a threat from outside their galaxy had never occurred to them. "Why didn't you warn us?" Ambassador Huan asked. "Because you weren't ready," Commander Inho said. 300 years ago, this galaxy couldn't have stopped the Devourers. The species barely cooperated with each other. There were constant wars and conflicts. Dr. Yuna brought up more displays showing the galaxy's development over the past 3 centuries. "We've been guiding your development," she explained. "Every major peace treaty, every technological breakthrough, every moment when species chose cooperation over conflict, we were there, quietly helping." Nari leaned forward, fascinated. "You've been protecting us all this time?" "Protecting and preparing," Soman confirmed. "The recent peace between the Kalari and Vorthak didn't happen by accident. The synthetics' development of emotional understanding wasn't natural evolution. The ethereal's expansion of their psychic networks was encouraged by us." Admiral Kyung stood up angrily. "You've been manipulating us. We've been helping you become the best versions of yourselves," Commander Inho replied calmly. "Every choice was still yours to make. We just made sure you had the right opportunities." "Show them the real evidence," Dr. Yuna said. Soman activated another display that showed human interventions over the past 3 centuries. The mysterious ship disappearances that had puzzled investigators turned out to be human vessels stopping pirate attacks. The unexplained victories against impossible odds were human forces secretly helping weaker species defend themselves. "Every time you needed help but didn't know where to ask for it, we were there," Soman said. "We've been the guardians you never knew you had." "But why reveal yourselves now?" Nari asked. "Because the Devourers are only 50 years away," Commander Inho said grimly. "And because we believe this galaxy is finally ready to stand and fight alongside us." Dr. Yuna brought up detailed scans of each species' current capabilities. "The Kalari have developed the scientific knowledge we need," she explained. "The Vorthak have built the military infrastructure. The ethereals can provide communication across vast distances. The synthetics can process information faster than ever before. The Nexari can coordinate massive group efforts. Even the Voidwalkers have abilities we'll need." "What about humans?" Ambassador Huan asked. "What do you bring to this alliance?" Fleet Admiral Soman smiled. "We bring what we've always brought. The ability to adapt to anything, the refusal to give up no matter how impossible things look, and the knowledge of how to make very different people work together toward a common goal." She stood up and looked around the chamber at all the different species. "For 300 years, we've been becoming something new. Not just humans, but something capable of standing against the Devourers, but we can't do it alone. We need all of you working together, using your unique strengths in perfect coordination." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Kyung asked. Commander Inho's expression became serious. "Then in 50 years, there won't be a galaxy left to refuse anything." The chamber fell silent as the weight of the human revelation settled over everyone. The legends had returned, but they hadn't come back as conquerors or saviors. They had come back as partners in the greatest fight the galaxy had ever faced. Outside the chamber, the human fleet waited patiently in space, their living ships slowly adapting to their new environment. The galaxy's future would be decided in the coming days, and everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Dr. Yuna stood before the largest gathering of galactic leaders in recorded history. Representatives from every known species filled the great assembly hall, their faces showing fear, confusion, and desperate hope. "The Devourers are not like any enemy you have ever faced," she began, activating a massive holographic display. "They do not want your territory or your resources. They want to consume everything you are and make it part of themselves." The display showed images that made even the bravest warriors shudder. Twisted ships that looked like they were made from the bones and flesh of 1,000 different species. Creatures that had once been proud galactic citizens, now turned into mindless drones serving the Devourer collective. "When they take a planet, they don't just kill the inhabitants," Dr. Yuna continued. "They study every person, learn their skills, absorb their knowledge, and then use that information to become stronger. Every civilization they consume makes them more dangerous than before." Ambassador Huan raised his hand. "How do they convert living beings into these drones?" "Through a combination of biological infection and technological implantation," Dr. Yuna replied. "They inject victims with a substance that rewrites their DNA while simultaneously installing cybernetic control devices. The process turns independent minds into extensions of the Devourer collective consciousness." Minho, the Kalari biologist, studied the data with growing horror. According to this, they retain all the victim's original abilities while gaining perfect obedience to the collective. A converted Kalari scientist would still have all their knowledge, but would use it only to serve the Devourers. "Exactly," Dr. Yuna said. "This is why they've become so powerful. They don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb everything useful and discard the rest." Commander Inho stepped forward to address the military representatives. 3 galaxies have already fallen to them," he said. "Each time the defending civilizations made the same mistakes. They fought as separate species, using traditional tactics against an enemy that learns and adapts faster than any natural evolution." Admiral Keong stood up. "What makes you think we can succeed where 3 entire galaxies failed?" "Because we have something they didn't," Fleet Admiral Soman said as she joined the presentation. "We have humans, and we have 300 years of preparation." She activated a new display showing the galaxy as it existed now, with networks of communication, defense systems, and cooperation agreements connecting every inhabited system. "When we first discovered the Devourer threat, we realized that the galaxy as it existed could never defeat them," Soman explained. "The species barely trusted each other. Wars were constant. Technology was jealously guarded instead of shared. So, you changed us," Sora the Ethereal said, her psychic voice reaching every mind in the room. "You guided our development to make us more suitable for your purposes." "We guided your development to help you become the best versions of yourselves," Dr. Yuna replied. "Every technological advance we influenced was something your species was capable of achieving. We just helped you find the right paths." She brought up specific examples. The peace treaty between the Kalari and Vorthak had been negotiated by diplomats who attended conferences where humans, disguised as other species, provided crucial insights. The synthetics' breakthrough in emotional programming came after they discovered research notes that humans had carefully placed in their databases. The Ethereal's psychic network expansion happened because we helped you realize that connecting minds across the galaxy would benefit everyone, Commander Inho added. "We never forced any species to do anything they didn't already want to do." Jiwon, speaking through multiple synthetic voices in perfect harmony, asked the crucial question. "What is your strategy for defeating the Devourers?" Fleet Admiral Soman smiled grimly. "We're going to do something they've never encountered before. We're going to fight them as a unified galaxy while simultaneously using their own methods against them." She activated a display showing the human fleet's true capabilities. The ships they had seen were only the visible part of human technology. Hidden throughout the galaxy were massive defense networks, communication systems that connected every world and weapons that could strike across vast distances. "For 300 years we've been building a galaxy-wide defense system," Soman explained. "Every species contributed without realizing it. Kalari scientists developed the theoretical frameworks. Vorthak engineers built the physical infrastructure. Ethereal psychics created the communication networks. Synthetic minds handle the computational requirements. Nexari coordination ensures perfect timing. And the Void Walkers? Nari asked. Commander Inho's expression became mysterious. The Void Walkers have been our partners since before the other species knew humans existed. They've been gathering intelligence on the Devourers for centuries, traveling to dimensions where they could observe without being detected. As if summoned by his words, the air in the chamber began to shimmer. Slowly, translucent figures materialized. The Void Walkers had returned from their dimensional hiding places. The Void Walker, leader, a being of shifting light and shadow, spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We have seen the Devourer's true nature, it said. They are not invincible. They have weaknesses that can be exploited, but only if all species work in perfect unity. Dr. Yuna brought up detailed analysis of Devourer biology and technology. They are strongest when fighting predictable enemies, she explained. Their collective consciousness allows them to adapt quickly to any strategy they've encountered before. But they struggle against creativity, improvisation, and tactics they've never seen. That's where humans become crucial, Commander Inho said. Other species optimize for specific solutions. Kalari find the most mathematically perfect answer. Vorthak use the most militarily sound strategy. Synthetics choose the most logically efficient approach. But humans excel at creative chaos, Fleet Admiral Soman added. We find new approaches faster than the enemy can adapt. We turn disadvantages into advantages. We refuse to accept defeat, even when victory seems impossible. Minho was studying the biological data about humans that Dr. Yuna had provided. Your genetic structure is unlike anything in nature, he said. You can literally evolve during a single lifetime. How is this possible? 300 years of directed evolution, Dr. Yuna replied. We didn't just prepare the galaxy. We prepared ourselves. We became something new, something capable of fighting the Devourers on their own terms. She showed them scans of human DNA as it existed now. The genetic code was incredibly complex, with built-in adaptation mechanisms that could respond to almost any threat. We can survive partial conversion by the Devourers, she explained. Our immune systems can fight off their biological agents, long enough for us to strike back from within their collective. The implications were staggering. Humans had turned themselves into living weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourers. This is madness, Admiral Kyung said. You've made yourselves into something that's barely human anymore. We've made ourselves into something that can save everyone, Commander Inho replied firmly, including humanity itself. Fleet Admiral Somin activated the final display, showing the approaching Devourer fleet in terrible detail. They will arrive in 47 years, 2 months, and 16 days, she announced. That gives us time to complete the preparations, but not time to waste. What do you need from us? Ambassador Huan asked. Everything, Somin replied. Complete cooperation between all species, shared technology and resources, combined military, forces under unified command, and most importantly, trust. Trust in what? Sora asked. Trust that when the time comes we will ask you to do things that seem impossible, Commander Inho said. Trust that our strategies will work even when they appear to be insane. Trust that humanity hasn't forgotten what it means to fight for others. Dr. Yuna brought up training programs and preparation schedules. We will teach you to fight like humans, she said, not just with weapons and tactics, but with the mindset that refuses to give up. You will learn to adapt, to improvise, to find solutions that don't exist in any manual. The chamber was quiet as every representative considered the magnitude of what was being asked of them. If we do this, Ambassador Huan said finally, if we give you complete cooperation, what are our chances of victory? Fleet Admiral Soman looked around the room at all the different species. Kalari, Vorthak, Ethereals, Synthetics, Nexari, and Voidwalkers. Each group was unique, with their own strengths and weaknesses. But together, guided by human adaptability and determination, they might have a chance. If we work together perfectly, she said, if every species contributes their absolute best, if we can maintain unity in the face of horrors beyond imagination, We might have a 30% chance of survival. The odds were terrifying, but they were odds none of the previous galaxies had possessed. Then we begin immediately, Juan declared. May the universe help us all. Outside the chamber, the human fleet began to spread throughout the galaxy, carrying with them the tools and knowledge needed to prepare for the greatest war in galactic history. The Devourers arrived like a nightmare made real. Their fleet emerged at the galaxy's rim, thousands of twisted ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Each vessel was different, a horrible combination of technology and biology, from hundreds of consumed civilizations. Some ships had the elegant curves of Kellari design, but corrupted with pulsing organic growths. Others showed Vorthak military engineering, twisted into predatory shapes that seemed to hunger for battle. Fleet Admiral Soman stood on the bridge of the flagship Harmony, watching the enemy approach through displays that showed the full scope of the Galactic Defense Network. Around her, beings from every species worked together at control stations that had been designed for multiple types of hands, minds, and sensory organs. Enemy fleet composition? She asked. Commander Inho, studying tactical displays, replied grimly. Over 12,000 ships confirmed. They're using technology from at least 50 different species. Some of those designs, I recognize them from the archives of civilizations that were supposed to be extinct. Dr. Yuna looked up from her biological analysis station. I'm detecting conversion signals from the lead ships. They're already trying to broadcast the infection protocols that turn beings into drones. Our mental shields are holding, but barely. Across the galaxy, the greatest unity in recorded history was taking shape. On Vorthak command ships, Kellari scientists worked alongside human tacticians to coordinate weapons that could strike across multiple star systems. In ethereal meditation chambers, human psychics joined their minds with alien thoughts to maintain communication across the vast battlefield. Synthetic processing centers hummed with activity as artificial minds merged with human creativity to solve problems in real time. Nexari swarms moved in perfect coordination, guided by human strategic thinking that turned their natural group behavior into a weapon of incredible precision, and in dimensions beyond normal space. Voidwalkers prepared to strike from angles that the Devourers couldn't predict or defend against. Nari, now serving as a liaison between the human command structure and the Galactic Defense Network, received reports from across the galaxy. Admiral, the outer defense ring is ready, she reported. 12,000 ships from all species positioned at the coordinates you specified. Soman nodded. And the inner defenses? Planets have been turned into fortress worlds. Every civilian who can't fight has been evacuated to the galactic core. The ones who stayed, they're ready to defend their homes. The first battle began when Devourer scouts encountered the outer defense ring near the Crimson Nebula. Admiral Kyung, commanding a joint Vorthak human task force, watched as enemy ships approached his position. All vessels, this is Admiral Kyung. He broadcast on the unified command frequency. Remember your training. These enemies adapt quickly, so we change tactics every few minutes. Human advisors will call the modifications. Trust them even when their orders seem crazy. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Traditional military doctrine said that fleets should maintain formation and concentrate fire on priority targets, but the human tactical advisors kept changing the plan. Scatter formation. Commander Inho's voice came through the communication system. Random attack patterns, maximum chaos. The galactic fleet broke apart and began attacking from dozens of different angles. The Devourer ships, expecting organized military action, struggled to adapt to the seemingly random assault. But the enemy learned quickly. Within an hour, they had started to predict the chaos patterns and respond effectively. Their return fire became more accurate, and several allied ships were destroyed. New tactic, a human voice called out. All ethereal-linked ships coordinate. Psychic assault on grid coordinates I'm transmitting now. Sora and her fellow ethereals, working in mental partnership with human psychics, launched a combined attack on the Devourer collective consciousness. For a few precious minutes, the enemy ships lost coordination as their shared mind was disrupted. Synthetic units maximum computational attack on their navigation systems. Dr. Yuna's voice joined the tactical network. Jaiwan and the synthetic. Collective launched thousands of digital attacks against Devourer computer systems. The enemy ships began to turn in wrong directions, their corrupted navigation sending them into asteroid fields and each other. Nexari swarms implement human pack hunt protocols. The insect-like Nexari abandoned their usual organized formations and began attacking like wild animals, guided by human instincts for unpredictable group hunting. The first battle was won, but barely. The Devourers retreated, but everyone knew they were learning from the encounter. The next fight would be harder. Over the following weeks, the pattern repeated across dozens of star systems. Each battle was different, with human advisors constantly changing tactics to stay ahead of the enemy's adaptation. The galactic forces learned to fight in ways that went against every military tradition they had ever known. Minho, working in a field laboratory on a contested world, made a crucial discovery about Devourer biology. "Dr. Yuna, I've found something important," he transmitted to the human flagship. "The conversion process has a weakness. If we can disrupt it at the right moment, we can turn converted beings back into their original selves." "How?" Yuna replied. "The human genetic adaptation abilities. If a human allows themselves to be partially converted, their DNA fights back against the Devourer control systems. It creates a cascade failure that can spread through their network." It was the most dangerous strategy anyone had ever proposed. It meant sending humans into the heart of enemy ships, letting them be partially converted and hoping their genetic modifications would corrupt the Devourer collective from within. "I'll do it," Commander Inho volunteered immediately. "We'll all do it," Fleet Admiral Soman said firmly. "Every human who can survive partial conversion. It's what we were made for." The final battle began when the main Devourer fleet reached the galaxy's core systems. Billions of beings watched from fortress worlds as the largest space battle in history unfolded around them. Soman stood on the Bridge of Harmony as thousands of ships from both sides engaged in desperate combat. The galaxy's combined fleets were holding their own, but just barely. The Devourers were adapting to every tactic almost as quickly as the humans could invent new ones. "All human volunteers prepare for infiltration mission," she announced. "Commander, Inho led a team of 50 humans in specially modified ships designed to be captured by the enemy. As planned, the Devourers took the ships and began the conversion process on their crews, but human DNA was designed for this moment. As the conversion began, human genetic systems fought back, creating chaos in the Devourer biological networks. "It's working," Dr. Yuna reported from her monitoring station. "The corruption is spreading through their collective consciousness." Across the battlefield, Devourer ships began to malfunction as their shared mind was poisoned by human adaptability. Converted beings started to remember who they had been before. Some even turned their ships against their former captors. "All forces, final assault," Admiral Kyung broadcast. "The enemy is vulnerable." The galaxy's united fleet struck with everything they had. Forthak weapons fired alongside Kalari energy beams, ethereal psychic attacks combined with synthetic digital warfare, Nexari swarms coordinated with Voidwalker dimensional strikes. And throughout it all, human voices coordinated the chaos, turning the natural strengths of every species into a weapon that the Devourers couldn't understand or counter. The main Devourer command ship, a massive hybrid of 1,000 different technologies, began to break apart as the collective consciousness that controlled it collapsed. Without their unified mind, the Devourer fleet lost all coordination. Some ships fled back toward the galactic rim. Others simply shut down, their crews finally free from the collective's control. A few exploded as their corrupted systems overloaded. In the aftermath of the battle, beings from every species worked together to help the freed conversion victims. Many could be restored to their original forms, though they would need time to recover from their ordeal. Fleet Admiral Soman addressed the galaxy from the Bridge of Harmony, with representatives from every species standing beside her. "Today, we proved that the galaxy's greatest strength doesn't come from any single species," she said. "It comes from our ability to work together, to combine our different abilities into something greater than any of us could achieve alone. Ambassador Juan, now serving as the official leader of the unified galactic government, added his own words. Humanity never truly left us, he said. They spent 300 years becoming what we needed them to become, while helping us become the best versions of ourselves. Today we all learned what it truly means to be united. Nari, recording the historic moment for future generations, looked around at the beings who had fought together to save their galaxy. Humans had returned as legends, but they had proven themselves to be something more important, partners who brought out the best in everyone around them. The Devourer threat was ended, but the unity they had forged would last forever. The galaxy had learned that its greatest strength came not from conquest or dominance, but from cooperation and the refusal to give up hope. In the years that followed, the species of the galaxy would face new challenges and discover